must have thought they should because they're going to send us to not too long.
Oh well.
Yeah, but they close the whole thing down. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, you
I love the fact that I got this head
John?
Yeah, there was.
What'd you do that for?
Melissa and Jesse. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that they've corrected that.
1 minute.
I gotta go back next week. So, and give them
I never even noticed that. And it wasn't. It's the first Wednesday.
But they're all super receptive.
It used to be, years ago, it was the second Thursday. It got changed. When we moved here, it got changed because there's something else going on the second Thursday. So, they must have reprinted it and just put the old one on it because I know it was corrected when we moved here. And last year's schedule, no, that one, yeah, that's what I said, because I know the 2017 said first Wednesday. It's the first Wednesday of the month. Okay.
Gramsland cleans up. You go to a food truck. We went to one at Farmers Market down at the county there in Pontiac.
Guys, it's 7.
It's unbelievable.
The busyness.
Unbelievable.
I don't know.
Probably 3 to 5.
Everybody ready?
Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's Village of Holly meeting, and I'd like to, before we begin, I'd like to welcome our new president, Mr. Tom McKinney.
Thank you.
So without ado, I will turn this over to him.
Thank you for calling the meeting to order. You didn't say it, but everyone came to order when you did that.
Yeah.
Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alsop.
Here.
Kirkshank.
Here.
Heupel.
Here.
Shield.
Here.
Musgrave.
Here.
Rankin.
Here.
McKinney.
Here. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to approve the agenda as printed.
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we actually conduct roll call.
All right. We'll have a roll call.
Heupel.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kirkshank.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Public comment. Members of the public can address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes. Council may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. Prior to addressing council, we ask that members of the public state their name and address for the record. Mr. Love?
John Love, 200 North Saginaw. At the last meeting, I asked that we have some kind of presentation from the council about what's going to happen to improve our village in the upcoming year. So I want to see what your ideas and proposals are to accomplish something this year. I have a few items that I'd like to have considered. The car wash was purchased in November a year and a half ago now, and nothing's happened on it. They stored construction equipment on it for almost a year at that time. This thing needs a for sale sign on it. It needs to be marketed not with, well, we were talking about it and people come and talk to us. No, that's how you market something that you want to do. It's on the main street. It needs to be improved. Then I hear from the fire people that there's a deal to buy this diesel Spencer place for a big, massive fire hall. I don't know what the status is of that, but it has to be discussed in an open meeting. As soon as an option to buy is signed, before it's concluded, it needs to be discussed in an open meeting. Unlike what happened at the Gray Lady, where they didn't do that. The waterworks. Putting these signs up and blocking Hoffman from access to the building is unacceptable. That needs to be supported, his efforts be supported, and he's a licensed builder. He can have access and do what's necessary. You can't come up with a plan if you come down and say, oh, we got a dump. We're going to make a big plan. Oh, what's involved? What's the time period? You can't even formulate those kind of things. I've worked on a few dumps myself. If I hadn't done what I did, the mill wouldn't be here. We'd have a beautiful parking lot. That's not what Holly is. So we need to correct that, the attitude of the management here. And we have made this, we have this proposed historic district expansion. We had a tour of that area, and some historic properties were omitted from that plan, and it needs to be enlarged. Like when you have one side of the street in the historic district and the other side isn't, and there's 10 historic buildings on that side, it should be expanded, and that should be done now. So this district project should go forward. And I'll talk some more about the problems with the Historic District Commission. But I want to see your ideas and your things, and just instead of just coming down to the meeting and sitting here and saying no news.
Thank you, Mr. Love.
I'm here representing Kaya.
Could you step up to the mic, please?
My name is Teresa Blaska. I'm here representing Holly Area Youth Assistance. I just want to know, would you like me to present under public comment or once you get to the item on the agenda?
I think we'll wait till you get to the item on the agenda.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Thank you, John. Hearing none, we'll move on to old business. Waterworks building progress update.
Yes. Joe Frost and Ron Campbell from Oakland County Planning are
Please state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. George Cullis, 601 East Maple Street. Joe Frost and Ron Campbell from Oakland County Planning are working on some concept drawings on this. We've had a meeting with both Dr. Henthorn and Dr. Henthorn is from University of Michigan Flint, and Drs. Williams and Dr. Smith are from Kettering University. Kettering University is looking at a capstone project on the historical nature of the building, and Dr. Smith is looking at the business plan for the project, and then Dr. Henthorn is more on the historical aspirations of the building and would put together a program where they would be able to tell the story and set it up that would go into the building. On the physical side of it, with the planning from Oakland County, we're at a point where not only does Oakland County need access building, but Kettering University would like to come down and see the building, and the others would like to see the building. Now we know that the building has concerns inside. What we would like to do is be able to fix the floor and fix the roof on an interim basis. It may not be a final project, but it would certainly be a safety project. And we'd like to get an agreement with the village that would allow Mr. Hoffman in the building to do some of those repairs. He does have a contractor's license. This would be similar to the agreement that was given to Sue Julian and her group when they were looking at the building. And the one difference is they didn't have a licensed contractor at the time, but the village council did give them permission to get in the building, and they signed the papers in regards to responsibilities and liabilities and so on and so forth. So we're at that point where we need that kind of access to this building to get some of that done. And the first steps would be, of course, getting the building secured so that people could be in and out of the building safely to take us to the next steps. Because without specific dimensions and plans and standing there, everybody's kind of shooting from the dark. So our request at this point would be able to get in there. If over the next few months you decide that's not the plan and you still decide to demolish it, then all you've really lost are some brand new 2x4s and 2x6s, which you're not paying for anyway. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'd like, Bob Hoffman, volunteer. I'd like to just reiterate a little what George said. And I'm willing to use my builder's license, my insurance, and what we'd like to do is gain access to the building. We've already purchased the door. We'd like to install that door so whoever needs to get in there, they have easy, safe, legal access to get in there. And so if we need some kind of agreement or just permission from the council, but we'd like to really get going on this. And we can't finalize those plans with Oakland County because they need to get in there and take some actual dimensions so they can measure where some of the equipment is and you know, the interior dimensions of the building. So that's what we're asking for today, is permission to do that.
Question for you. Have you spoken with Chief McGee, who is our building advisor? As far as what was explained that was required for you folks to get in there?
Well,
a report from an engineer?
We had just a small conversation, but they had done a report on it, and they sent me an engineering study, but the engineering study that had been done was about the dam, not about the building. But then Steve did send me some pictures of the building, but the pictures, if I'm not mistaken, were pictures from the lower level looking up at the floor that's all rotted, but we know that, and I know what to do to fix it. It's really fairly elementary, but I know what needs to be done, and I'd be happy to schedule a meeting and walk through there with him again. But no matter what we do, we need to put a door in there, because right now it's plywooded shut. So every time you go over there, you have to peel the plywood off. You might as well put a door on there with a lock set and give the people that are entitled to a key so you have easy access in and out, and then we can determine what we need to do. But we need to get in there to make these measurements so we can get these plans finalized by the county, because as George said, we met with them last week and we're almost at a stopping point because they can't finalize it, because they don't have the actual interior dimensions, they don't have the exact location of where that equipment is in there, because the plans that are drawing, although they're conceptual, they are going to show restrooms in the lower level, a proposal for the second floor of things that can be done, and that type of thing. But we need to get in there and take the measurements. So I'd be happy to do that if you guys think that would be fine, but we need to get in there and do these things. I mean, it's no different than any other construction site I've been on.
What's your expectation for having plans done? Because April is the time limit that we gave for a go and no-go date.
Well, we'll have them.
It's in April.
We have to get in.
6 months, and it was November. So November.
I think if you check the minutes, you'll see it's June 1st.
Okay, but let's say it's April. Let us get in there, and it won't take them long to finalize the plans. I mean, they're well along in this process, but they need to measure where the stuff is. And it's going to take a matter of, I don't think they'd have to be in the building a half hour to measure everything. And then they'll go put it to paper, and we can keep progressing as we have been progressing for the last 6 months.
I mean, I would default to the village administration because they're the building professionals. We're council people. We don't have that kind of stuff. So I think it would be an agreement between a village manager and Steve McGee that, you know, if there was, I think before you said you needed an engineering to say that it was safe at that point, and that's after the village has already had a couple $100,000 lawsuit of someone getting injured in there. We're a little bit skeptical of allowing individuals in there.
Okay, we're not just going to let anybody in there. I'm willing to use my builder's license. We know what's wrong with it. Steve and I'd be happy to get with him again, but we both know what's wrong with it. You need to put a new floor and a new roof on it.
Bob, the problem I have is that you have a builder's license, there's no question about that, but when you insure a premises, only the owner can insure it. I can't buy a risk in a building you own.
No, no,
I have no insurable interest in it. So George said you want to get in and out safely. The village wants you in and out safely. The question is, can that be done? Some people don't think it can be done, but I don't think you can bring your insurance to that premises because you don't own it.
No, but my liability insurance for acting as say a contractor, I am insured for that. I can't insure the building itself. I'm sure that I even will sign a hold harmless clause, which...
Your insurance would cover the people you allowed in the building.
That's right, my employees.
For workers' comp, but I think when there's a workers' comp claim, there's also a lawsuit against the owner of the premises. The owner of the business is covered by workers' comp. And you know what? It's a can of worms that I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm concerned that the village has exposure, and I'm concerned about limiting that exposure. And there's a vehicle called an assumption of risk, but no lawyer will ever tell his client to rely on that instrument.
Okay, then
I'll defer to the village's attorney, not me, on that issue.
Sure, and we've had some discussion, obviously, with Mr. Gildner regarding this, but respectfully, I mean, the fact of the matter is that the fire chief building official posted the building as no entry because the structure is unsafe. His requirement was that a structural engineer examine the building before anybody goes in it, for that very reason, the liability that it incurs to the village. So really, the village council cannot override the building official, nor can the village manager. And so if Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Cullis, I mean, certainly Chief McGee will meet with them at any time, as will I. But I mean, until the chief is satisfied that the building is safe to enter and the manner in which it's going to be repaired is safe, he has that stop order placed on it.
Right.
And if there's an instrument that can protect the village, an indemnification agreement or something of that nature, I think that's what the village would want to see also.
You mean like a hold harmless clause or something?
A hold harmless, indemnification, they all have all these names, assumption of risk. There's a lot of instruments that are prepared. You have to be cautious about those, but that's not my job. That's the job of the staff and the village attorney.
Yes, and administration, I mean, we're willing to open up the building whenever Chief McGee is satisfied that, one, it is either structurally safe or it has been assessed and addressed as far as what the manner of repair will be. I mean, it's all about liability and safety. But, I mean, so tomorrow, if Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Cullis meet with the fire chief, building official, and they satisfy him as far as the progress, administratively, we can give that permission. The council cannot, respectfully, cannot override the building official. He is the top authority.
Okay, how about then I'll get with George and we'll get with Steve and we'll look at our schedules, see what's convenient for all three of us. I can't do it tomorrow, but probably next week, I would think, and we'll see what your schedule is. And if you don't mind, we'll do that. We'll go into the building. And I think if we could do this and we can talk about it, I'd like to have the county people there too. Let them take their measurements and we can hold the tape measure. We can, whatever, but just so they can keep moving along with their plans. But we'll do that then.
That sounds like a good plan because we've been told twice now there's nothing we can do about it. So
I give you permission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. New business, special event, cruise to Battle Alley.
So this is a special event permit or application that is in your packet tonight. This is the car cruise that occurs each year. In the permit, it has hours that are requested for approval for closures of South Saginaw Street from Maple to the railroad tracks and also Battle Alley from South Saginaw to Broad. The fire chief has made a request that a 15-foot lane be maintained in the center of Saginaw, and that's, of course, for emergency entrance of his vehicle or equipment in the event that something should occur. Other than that, the hours are specified on the permit. So if there would be any discussion from council or questions.
Any questions of administration by council? Any discussion among council members?
Was this only
Question.
brought,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, was this only brought because of the change of the center lane? What,
It was less than 60 days till the council meeting, so that's why it was put on the.
oh, is it less than 60 before the first car show?
First week in May or something.
Second
like
week
that.
in May.
Second
Oh,
week
okay,
in May.
so it's less than 60 days.
Less than
That's
60
why it's
days,
down
and we
there.
agreed
Okay.
it'd be a new business item.
Perfect.
When it's less than 60 days. That's
Okay.
the only reason.
Yeah, I guess we are March already.
Right. It doesn't look like it.
Sheesh. Yeah, we're cruising right along.
Any other questions of council? Comments by council? Questions for the administration? Any? Yes, Jeannie.
I have to walk up to the
I'm afraid you do, yes.
I'd like to see the car show have less days. May, 5 days, June, 5 days, July, 5 days, August, 5 days, September, 5 days, October, 5 days, and if it's in April, that's 4 days. And for our street to be closed all those days in the summer, it's a burden on some of the stores. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and if it's April, that's 34 days that our street is filled with cars. And I love the cars, I love the people, but the street is closed too often. Could we have it every other week instead of every Wednesday, or lessen the time?
Thank you. Historically, it's been every week, Bob, right?
I beg your pardon?
Historically, it's been every week.
Yes. And it's, so I'll answer your question, ma'am. And I deal with you in town. I try to do the best I can do so cars isn't aggravating everybody. And it's so hard to organize it anyhow. And once you get started on it, every Wednesday, you can count on the same people coming or different cars coming. If you put it every 2 weeks or once a month, you'll lose your clientele. It's too hard. It took 25 years to do this. And do you do any business with the car show?
Maybe the first couple weeks.
Because
when the ladies move them through the store.
we get a lot of village
And
residents.
they have a hard time because they move the pots. They even use the pots to block the alley, and the pots get beat up every weekend. And I come and move them away from the buildings.
But I personally,
I know you've tried.
you've called me and I've come back and moved them the way you wanted them. I try not to damage anything. I've offered to pay for anything if it gets broken. I try not to do any damage, and at 8 o'clock when the town closes down, I'll spend till 9:30 cleaning cigarette butts, coffee cups, putting the flower pots back, locking the bathroom, clean the bathroom, completely leaving town like I got it. You know that, ma'am.
And the cars come a lot earlier than they should. They take up a lot of spaces where customer cars are.
And I just want to talk for a minute. 3:30, 4 o'clock, it's a madhouse in there from not our cars to hot rods. I'm talking about regular people coming through town at 30, 40 miles an hour. I've been hit on the side before. I keep those gates open as long as I can to almost 5 o'clock or sometimes after on that one side towards 101, so you guys can come through. And I'll even take and help some of your customers and guide them out and back, or I'll move their cars for them or ride with them out and back. I try to make all the business I can for you guys, and you should, all you guys that are complaining about the car show, you ought to join me and help me, and that's all for you guys too. And it's for the Lions Club. I don't mean to harass anybody. I think it's a good thing, and we've got a lot of village residents coming in town and enjoying that car show. It's the only thing that don't cost our taxpayers any money. The police don't have to be involved. We don't have to get any outside help for our tax dollars. I mean, I'll work with you any way I can, ma'am, and I've helped you. You've called me before. I've come out there at 7:30 in the morning and moved them pots. I think it was you. I put them all back like you wanted them. And maybe one flower got broke or something, but Ryan, and we're pretty careful about them flower pots because I know what they mean to you. And if I do anything wrong, just come directly to me and tell me, not the workers.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any further comments, issues? Yes, sir.
My name is Jerome Maraska. I am the owner of 114, 116, and 118 South Saginaw. And I'd like to address the car show as well. I'm not as popular as John Love, but you'll get to know me. Anyways, I'm new to town. I love events. I think it's great. One of these days, you're my hero, John. Anyways, this past summer was my first year in town as a property owner on Main Street, and I just wanted to voice my concerns that I'm hearing from other businesses, but personally for myself. We pretty much do zero business from 1 o'clock on every Wednesday all summer long. When I bought the building and got the business from Barb McKay, which I'm sure most of you know, she was all excited about the car show, and she thought it was great because they had a lot of traffic through the store on car show day. Well, only to find out the reason she had traffic was because she allowed people to use the restroom. And so when I stopped doing that, we have zero traffic in the store, which I'm a team player. I love activities in the community, and there's nothing personal about the car show. I have another location in Ferndale, so I can tell you about a car show. It's called the Dream Cruise, and that we plan for. But we're half out of business 2 days out of the year and totally closed 1 day of the year, but we know it in advance. We know this in advance, but it goes on so long. It's all summer long. Every Wednesday from 1 o'clock on, we have zero business. I can show you our books. And the fact that the people last year, and this isn't no reflection on you because you can't control everyone, but we literally kind of got scorned upon when we went out and asked them to move their chairs because they totally were blocking the front entrance of our store. So even if people wanted to come in, they couldn't. And so when we asked them to move, they had to move their coolers and their lawn chairs and all this kind of stuff. And they kind of like looked at us like we were asking them something really wrong. And I just said, well, you know, we are trying to run a business here. Come on in. We'd love to have you come look around. But no foot traffic really during that time. And so I just wondered if there was ever consideration about moving it to a different location, still close to town, where we can all work together and have the flow of the people. I'm all in favor of the car show, don't get me wrong. I guess I would like consideration for the businesses that are there 365 days a year paying taxes, and I'm concerned with having to close basically 1 day every week in the afternoon, and that's what we've experienced. So I just wanted to let you know because I don't even know that you knew that. So
Where is your business?
We own Holly Antiques and Blooms by J.R. Designs, the flower shop.
Yeah, when Mark was there, he was packed every Wednesday.
I don't know what changed other than we don't let people to use our bathroom. That's the only thing that Barb told me was different.
Why don't we get together, me and you, and why don't we advertise it with the DJ? They might not even know you're there. I'll work with you.
If we can get people away from the door.
Yeah, I'll make sure they're from your door. I'll come
Thank
down
you.
and tell them to leave. Thank you, sir.
Are there any other car shows that happen in the downtown environment weekly?
I don't roam. Royal Oak's got a lot of stuff going on.
Does like Milford have one? I don't think they would have one downtown.
I can't answer that, Dave, because I don't know. But Holly isn't a regular town. It's unique.
Agreed. But I've also heard a couple of different businesses approach me and say that just kind of under the radar, what they're kind of echoing. And I've always said, you know, the people downtown, the businesses, you know, like you're bringing the people, they got to figure out how to get them in the doors. But when the majority start kind of saying the same thing, I don't know if it's necessarily, you know, them trying to get them in the building because, you know, they won't eat at the restaurants because they have the coolers and, you know, they're not buying drinks and that kind of thing.
Red Devil sponsors car show. Via sponsors car show. The bread shop sponsors car show. All the restaurants around there do really well. And I was going to bring the Red Devil down here. I didn't have time. All them people sponsors car shows.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. but I'm just seeing if there's any other community that does the same thing that we do. You know, have we ever considered Crapo Park or something like that? Is there a reason why that would not work?
We talked last year about this. The people love downtown. I mean, look how nice it is. You come in there, it's on calendars, it's in newspapers, a car show, it's all over. And where are you ever going to get an activity that's so awesome as that to bring that many? It put Holly on the map. I'm telling you, Dave. When it was 25 years ago,
Well, for
we
hot
had 3
rodders,
cars
yeah.
in town. It took 25 years to build up that car show. And how many taxpayers love that car show? Halloween, there's 500, 600, 700 cars. Everything's free. You were there eating donuts.
No, I
and
agree.
cider.
Well, we make an event, but we ride our bikes down. There's no way I'm driving downtown and trying to find a parking spot to eat at a business. We're riding our bikes and parking them.
We all
on the
know
side.
town is small,
You know.
but I'm just saying the way I got it organized, it takes a long time to do that car show. Nobody, you can help me. I mean, nobody realizes how much work. You're down there, how hard it is, Suzanne. And it's just something for the townspeople. And the Lions Club gets the money at the end of the year. They buy glasses for the people in town. When there's other activities in town, we help out as much as we can. Haven't we, Jerry, helped out for the fireworks, the car show?
Yes.
I mean, we've give checks what we could afford.
Well, no, but you're saying at the car show, and we're just talking about the location. So, like, if the
There's
car show
nothing better
happened
than downtown
20
Holly.
feet the other way, you would still be able to raise money and do fundraising and stuff like that. So that would still be accomplished.
But it wouldn't be the same. And Vincent Curry sponsors the car show.
We do.
Red Devil sponsors it with money. Jamie's Coffee Shop, David's Spring Bread, Via's gives us money. I mean, all these people donate, and it can't be that bad if they wouldn't give you no money. Their restaurants are packed. Red Devil's done it ever since it had the thing, a car show. Moose sponsors the car show. I think everybody that's involved in town, if they'll come to me and go along with me, maybe we can all help each other. I'm out to help everybody. I don't bash nobody in town. And if the shop owners want to come to me and say, Bob, here's a $2 coupon, advertise for us, or one of the restaurants, give a coupon for food, that's helping them. But nobody in town does that for me. And I want to work with them. They got beautiful shops. And these people are doctors, lawyers, old people, young people. They would love to come to some of these shops, but they don't even come up to DJ and ask them to advertise for them. And she's there.
Mr. Walker, this item on the agenda requires action, and it results in the granting or the denying of a permit. Is that correct?
The approval or denial of this request, yes.
This request. And we can impose reasonable conditions on the request?
Yes.
And have there been those conditions in the past?
As far as hours of operation and street closure, yes.
And what about tailgating on the sidewalk? It would seem to me that that's, if you're blocking the entrance of a store, that's a safety issue, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But most of them are closed at 5 o'clock.
Well, if they're closed, it's not a safety issue then. That's, but a business that's open would be a safety issue if it was blocked.
Yes.
We don't block the streets, Tom, until we do not do all the closures till after 5 o'clock.
Which seems reasonable, but I think that I heard that they're there earlier.
Because they're eating. They got, you know, if they have a Camaro or they got a new Suburban, they still got right to come to town to park to eat.
They do. There's no question about that. That they can park there at 1 o'clock and they can shop.
Yep. And they're not causing no problems. And if I come down there at 2 o'clock, it takes me an hour to get it going.
But if they're parking there to keep their spot and they're not shopping, or they're playing fast and loose with your good intentions, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. No, I don't. We don't reserve spots for them.
Okay. Well, they reserve their own.
Yeah. First come, first served.
Well,
and they know the rules. I've told them.
I wonder if we can't issue the permit with these restrictions, and then you can work with the attendees and the businesses to see that if you're tailgating, that's okay if the business is closed, but you can't block the door of an open business. Or
well, we don't. We just park in parking lots.
No. I'm talking about the people who are tailgating on the sidewalks.
Tailgating? What do you mean, Tom?
I thought I heard that somebody was.
You mean sitting in front of the store with a chair?
Yeah.
I can go stop it.
Yeah.
I can go ask them, please don't block the entrance.
Yeah.
It just takes a second to tell them.
And I can, Bob doesn't see it, I'm down there every week.
But I roam that street.
And I can,
but we could help you by making that a condition of the, a reasonable condition of the.
Not to block the doorways, they shouldn't anyhow.
Yeah.
Or the sidewalks is what I think what Tom's trying to say.
Yeah, the sidewalks have to be open to pedestrian traffic.
And not to people sitting in chairs.
Is it possible that they could sit in front of their vehicles, put their chairs in front of their
They'll
vehicles?
get run over.
Street
You know how
closed.
town is.
Since the,
Now, if it's closed at 5 o'clock, how are you gonna get
if the
Street's
road's
closed.
closed though?
Yeah, because if we got cars parked this way, then I line the cars this way, line the cars this way to keep the fire lane open. There's no room. Town's so small as it is. I try to put 300 cars in town.
Well, they can't be on the sidewalk and block pedestrian traffic, and they can't block an open business.
I've been
And those
doing
are
that
reasons.
for 25 years, Tom.
Pardon?
It's been doing that 25
Well,
years.
it's a safety issue, and it's a reasonable restriction on public access.
You'd have to come downtown to see. I've never had any problems the whole years I've been doing it, Tom. Nothing, except for the townspeople. Greg.
Usually what they do is they usually line up against the buildings with their backs to the buildings.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
just
not
sit
really
their chairs
impeding-
over by the building there.
not
and,
really
you
impeding
know,
sidewalk
stop
or,
it from the doorways.
Pedestrian traffic.
Like the benches that are on the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's more similar to like what the benches are, so it's not really impeding traffic. I
You
think
guys are good at arguing your cases, I'll tell you
No,
that.
because it's worthwhile to argue about. It's 25 years, and it puts people in town. It's
Oh, it is
activities.
good. It's good. It's a worthy event. It really is.
Would you consider like moving the car show to Crapo Park one Wednesday a month and see
No,
how that
because
works?
It's not going to work. They come to town because town's beautiful.
I-
They
I-
love that town. It's
I think what it does is loses the atmosphere if
Yeah.
we move it.
We've done it a long time on no car shows.
Katie, you had a comment,
Yes.
please?
No problem.
Thank you.
Katie Hughes, 8965 Buckhorn Lake Road, also your DDA director. You know, I'm a person who likes stats, so I'll give you some stats, just some information to digest and do with as you wish. So the National Main Street, when they look at closure of a downtown business area, the general practice and what's accepted is to close down a downtown street to through traffic 10 times or less per calendar year. They recommend 5 to 6, but 10 is an acceptable amount. So the amount of times that the car show closes the downtown on a Wednesday night is much more than 10 times. And it's over the recommended amount of what National Main Street would suggest. Anything over that, they see that as hindering the economic impact of the downtown. Just some stats for you.
Yeah, so we have 30 just for the car show, not counting anything else. No ladies' night, no ferry day, no.
It's only 3 hours a night, really, when you think about 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm there till 9, 10 o'clock cleaning the streets. And the cars start rolling in at 3:30, 4 o'clock. And it takes from 4 to 5 o'clock to set up tables, to get people out of the way. And then you got to beg people to move their cars at 5 o'clock. They went to Frank and moved and left their car there till 8 o'clock. And they come in at 8 o'clock, and we have to move all the cars to get a car out of there because they're screaming and cussing at us. Dave, you know, I mean,
No, I know, it's
I'm a
Bob,
good
it's a difficult
organizer.
thing. But
And
I'm just
one
saying,
thing,
we wouldn't be
we stopped
doing our
at-
job if we didn't look at both sides of the issue.
We can stop the car show, but it's the best thing Holly's ever had, ever. And I'm doing it for free.
I really don't think anybody wants to stop the
It's
car
too
show. We
hard
just
to get
want
organized. I've got all my
go-
flyers out. I got all my. Each year I do the cruise news. I'm involved with the place down in Springfield Oaks. I'm with all them clubs. My advertisements all over Michigan. I get people from all over, and it's just noted. It's like the Dickens Festival. They know what days it's there. You start switching dates and switching stuff, you'll have 3 cars.
We're not asking you to switch dates or
What
not
are you
have the
asking?
car show. We're asking for some type of accommodation for the merchants downtown who are affected.
I think the merchants should go in with me and ride with me on the car show and try to work with me instead of against me, because I'm doing it for them too.
That's your job to sell them on that
No,
proposal.
I got half the town.
I know.
Do you like the car show events?
I love the car show. There's no question. There's no question. We have a comment, ma'am, please.
Michelle Mado, 201 South Saginaw, Holly Art and Framing. I have nothing against the car show. I think it's great. The year I bought the store in 2014, I hired somebody especially to work the show to make sure that we stayed open until 9 o'clock on that night. We have no business from the car show. You know, it's not the kind of people that are people aren't going to bring their art down and walk 6 blocks to my store. So Why can't we move it to Crapo Park? They're still in town. It's a beautiful town. They're going to come into the restaurants. The restaurants seem to be the only ones that are really making money on this. Who are you benefiting?
There's still people in town that likes the car show. I mean,
I like it too. No, I'm not saying I don't like it. I like it, but I have had to go out and ask people not to put their seats in front of my store, not to park their car 2 inches from my window. And you guys have done it, but I shouldn't have to ask.
What store do you have, ma'am?
Holly Art and Framing, at the corner. Yeah, you don't know where it is.
No, because
it's South Saginaw and Battle Alley.
Just by Zany Janie's.
It's right across the street.
But what kind of stuff do you sell?
We sell art framing. We do
There's a lot of
custom
people
framing.
involved in everything. I wonder why.
I've got a couple of customers. There's one guy that has bought art from me since the first year. That's one customer.
See, a lot of the people don't come up to me and say, I didn't know you. And I should. I mean, the DJ works for me. She could, all night long, mention your name and your products and everything.
Well, they're still not going to come into the store. They're not going to bring their art on a night when they can't.
Go ahead and finish.
When they can't walk through town. Why can't we just do it in a park? You're still in town. It's still a beautiful town. They can still come downtown and spend their money. I don't understand.
Well, everybody wants to be in the venue downtown, and I think that's understandable for both the property owners and for the car show participants. Any further comments from the public? Rick?
Rick Powers, 816 Holly Bush Court, and I've talked to numerous business owners and other people about the car show. Yeah, it's about 50-50, but I've thought about doing the car show where it's actually running down the street where Vincent Curry's shop is, all the way down Balcony Row, and then cutting right and going up towards the railroad tracks. That will allow you to get about 300 cars in. You would stay in the downtown area. You wouldn't have to block off Saginaw Street. So you have that area open on Saginaw Street, and you're cutting down that side street. You say, well, how are the cars and fire? They can get around it because there is a side street that goes off to one side, and you can go around the whole thing. And you would still be staying downtown. You'll be going down Balcony Row all the way down to where the Gray Lady is, and then coming up around. And you can still keep your disc jockey right there at Vincent Curry's place, but you're running it up towards Broad Street. Now, those shops would really benefit. The booths would benefit from it. Andy's would benefit from it. And I'm sure you won't get any pushback from them whatsoever. And there's nothing else here. On one side of the street is parking. The other side of the street is the Moose and an antique shop at Andy's. That's it. And you would not be interrupting any businesses. The people would still have the opportunity to go over to the Red Devil, Avia's, and numerous other places in the downtown area. Just a thought, something to keep in mind. I think it's a compromise that works for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so the question before council tonight is whether or not to approve the special event permit as requested, as is written down. From a staff perspective, if council chooses to approve this request, then our request would be that there would be emphasis placed on the beginning and ending time of the events, that no cars be parked in handicap spots, on the sidewalks, or across the crosswalk before 4 o'clock, and that 15-foot safety lane be maintained through the center, as well as emphasizing no blockading of open businesses during that time. If council chooses not to approve this request, then it would be denied, and then it would be up to the organizers of the car show whether they submitted an amended special event permit or not. But really, those are the options. I'm just stating that just to kind of bring this to closure and list what, from a staff perspective, stood out to us in this event application as submitted.
Thank you, Jerry. Any response from council in terms of those suggested restrictions or any additional
I'd be fine with trying that for this year, yeah, seeing how that works out, the times. It has to be concrete, because I've heard both sides of the story of they're showing up at 2:30 and they're not showing up at 5, you know, so there's both people, I believe, to be honest, so it's like, what do you do? I'm not here at that time when that street's being shut down, so, you know, those restrictions seem reasonable, but they need to be enforced. I mean,
And
that's
what restrictions do you really consider, David?
so the safety lane of the sidewalk, so, and
But
I
not
know
till
that to
5
be true
o'clock.
because
But when
we
there's
don't walk
400
down the sidewalks at all. We stay to the center because chairs aplenty are all along the sidewalk, and then we just cut through if we're going into a business or whatever
Okay,
it is.
a lot of times, Dave, 400 cars come in 20 minutes.
There's too many cars, Bob.
No, I'm just saying. Well, I knew you were going to pick on it.
No, Bob, I'm there almost every week, am I not? So I'm partaking in this event, but I also want to make sure that, you know, businesses are happy, residents are happy, and car show attendees. They're the bottom totem pole on the whole thing because we have business owners that spend money in town and invest in our village.
I agree. Bob, let me ask you, you don't have any objection to the restrictions that were articulated by Jerry, do you? Because that's what you did. That's what you're talking
That's
about.
exactly what I just said.
But your restrictions, Jerry, were from, I mean, I have to shut it down. Not shut it down. I have to start around 3:34 to get organized,
Well,
like any event.
Well, so actually your permit request says 4 o'clock. So I think if we just stayed with what you have specified in the permit and we stuck by and enforce those rules, I think that would be fine. I mean, from a public safety standpoint, I mean, we're concerned with having the street closure done in a uniform, orderly manner. Yeah, professional manner so that everybody knows exactly what's happening. Prior to the street closures, though, there have been occurrences, and a lot of it's because of overflow, and it will take some extra work by your committee to make sure that people do not back up onto the sidewalks prior to street closure, do not park in handicap spots, and do not block the crosswalks so that people can still, the pedestrians can still travel through town.
We always do that, Jerry, that's what I want to get straight. Okay, you want me to make sure nobody's blocking the doors of the customers' buildings. I'll go there and tell them to move their stuff. Okay, you do not want the street closures. We only pull that one out to control traffic, and we always leave that one open where the people can come back through, right? You want us to not park over by the village office until after 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. You know how I put a car up on there? Yeah. Okay, and the Battle Alley, we always close it up in front at 4:30 because of all the UPS trucks and stuff coming through.
And that's exactly what your permit says. So if
in Civic Drive, we shut down at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so if the car show committee or volunteers were to follow the requirements that you place on your permit and they were adhered to, I think it would improve the situation tremendously.
Well, I'm with you. I just didn't want to get down there and start it in a couple weeks, and all of a sudden I'm breaking the rules here and breaking the rules here.
Well, it's
just
to
make it civilized.
It's going to be in writing, and it becomes a tool for you if you can show your participants that you've been issued a permit that has restrictions, and everyone's having a good time. We have to share the space with the rest of the town.
How about I make the motion that we approve the permit with the restrictions and that Bob works with the business folks if they're having issues with people not obeying what the rules are, then you're going to take care of that for them.
Yep. Is that a motion?
Yes, it
is.
Is
There
a motion.
support?
Support.
There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Also,
Yes.
Kirkshank,
Yes.
Heupel,
Yes.
Shield,
Yes.
Musgrave,
Yes.
Rankin,
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2 on the new business, consideration of the approval of a resolution submitting to the village electors for approval the process for determining council compensation. Mr. Walker?
Sure, this was originally initiated by the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee. It was presented to the council previously and then set aside for at least 30 days for consideration. What this would enact would be a charter amendment question being placed on the November ballot for the voters of the village to decide if the different method of arriving at council compensation should be undertaken.
What's the pleasure of council?
We can give a background on this. I'm the chair of the Charter and Ordinance Committee, so what brought this up is just bouncing off of other communities and their pay scales. And since there hasn't been a pay scale adjustment since 1986, I think 86,
84, I think
84.
It
was. So that, you know, $900 for doing the work of this, we take a lot of time away from our families. I know myself, I'm well over 1,000 hours a year that I put in between, you know, meetings and then responding to residents and emails and phone calls and training sessions. Essentially, $900 makes it a volunteer position. So the thought with this is, you know, just to put it on the ballot to amend the charter so that, you know, there would be a resolution determined by council of what that pay would be. The one thing that I wanted to make sure I put in there is a few stopgaps so that council can't just keep continuing to vote their own raises. So what we did in there is, so you're not allowed to discuss compensation within 12 months of already making a motion on it. And also there's a 2-year layover between when the pay actually kicks in, so you're not voting your own raise. You're essentially, you know, you may get 1 year of that before you're off of council or something, or your term ends, I should say, in reality. And then it adjusts the council president's pay to 25% above whatever the normal council person's pay is, and that is just because the president does do some additional work that normal council people don't do.
And that would be on the ballot in November, and would become effective when?
2 years.
I don't. It has to be sent to governor
Oh,
and
that's
the
right.
attorney
Has to be,
general.
that's right.
Yeah, so if the ballot passed it, yeah, go ahead.
And then Oakland County approves the ballot language.
Right.
And I should say, I mean, November is the regular election. Council could choose to have it placed on the August, the primary election also.
Yeah, so we have the option of August or November. And then, so the timeline for this, let's say it passes in November, in December council adjusts the pay, it'd still be 2 years from there when the pay actually kicks in, so.
Very thoughtful. Any further discussion?
Actually, yeah, what would the raise be to, I guess?
There isn't a dollar amount in there because we've been burnt by this before, the current charter, $900, 1987. So it would be a resolution that council would vote on. You would also need a supermajority to pass some sort of compensation increase. So that's the other stopgap in there. Is it just doesn't need a 4 vote. You actually need, I think we did, the supermajority is at 5 or 6 on one of those. So, but that's the language of the ballot there. So you need 2/3 of the vote.
Answer your question?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we approve the resolution of 2017-34, submitting to the village electors for approval the process of determining council compensation to be put on the August 2018 ballot.
There's a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Motion and support. No further discussion? Roll call, please.
Cruikshank.
Yes.
Heupel.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
McKenna.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 3 on new business. Consideration of approval of resolution 2018-002, submitting to the village electors for approval the meeting schedule of the council. Any preliminary remarks, Mr. Walker?
Actually, I'll just defer this to Councilman Cruikshank also, as he was chair of that same committee that put this forward.
Yeah, so this one was discussing the amount of meetings that we have. The charter requires that we have 2 a month, with exception of November and December, where there's only 1 required. There are a handful of meetings every month where we just show up because we have to. There's nothing other than some consent agenda items. And so to give a little bit of time back to the administrations and their families and council members and their families, we are requesting to go on the ballot that we would only be required to have 12 meetings per fiscal year. Is that right? And we can always have additional meetings per month as needed, depending on the work schedule. But so instance, you know, tonight, you know, there's only a few items and then, you know, the business item is typically the second meeting of the month. It would somewhat follow what the township does, so they only meet once a month for their regular business items, and they get everything done and they go home. That would be it.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Cruikshank? Yes, Bob?
Dave, one thing good about having it every 2 weeks, we get to visit.
If you want to
can call me anytime,
if
Bob.
you want to call a special meeting to get that done, Bob, you go
Meet
right
at the
ahead.
car show.
If you
We'll
wait
come
for
see you at
1
the car
month,
show.
come to the meeting, then you forget about a lot of things. And I think that when we hire in, or get voted in, I think it's a good thing twice a month. I like it. It's actually my hobby.
This is a proposal for a ballot measure, so you could
Yeah,
take
so
that.
even if we voted yes,
you
it
can-
doesn't change anything. The
you
voters
can-
have to
yeah,
approve
you take that debate to the polls.
But it doesn't preclude us from having. It still doesn't preclude us from having 2 meetings a month.
Right.
It just that we're only required to have 1 meeting, or 12 meetings per fiscal year, which generally would work out to 1 a month.
God, we're making too much money for 1 meeting a month.
Since I've been on council, I think there's probably about 12 to 15 meetings where we just showed up and we didn't do anything. We voted a few consent agenda items and we went home. That could have easily been a few 2 more weeks. You know, we're visiting, but we're also, department heads are here, not at home sharing a meal with their family when they didn't necessarily need to. We're doing the same thing. You know, my girls are at home waiting for me to show up at home. You know, obviously tonight we have agenda items to discuss, but there's been plenty of meetings where there wasn't much going on, and it could have easily been pushed off another couple weeks.
Right, and added 20 minutes to the next meeting
Correct.
instead of coming here
Yes.
for having a special trip.
That's all.
A motion would be in order.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. No further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Heickel.
Yes.
Shea.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop. Cruikshank.
Yes.
McKenna.
Yes. Motion carried. Budget request, Holly Area Youth Assistance. This would be you now. Good evening again.
Hello. I'm Teresa Blaska. I'm representing Holly Area Youth Assistance, otherwise known as HIA. And I'm here tonight to ask the village to consider allocating monies to HIA in their 2019 and 20 budget. So I just want to give you a little history. In 1962, the village of Holly, along with other municipalities within Holly School District, agreed to support HIA, both to give that support and to financially support us. The village has not budgeted monies to HIA since 2008, but we do receive funds from all of the other municipalities. The students who reside in the village benefit from HIA programs, and some instances would be skill building, 35% are from the village, camp is 32%, and caseworker services 31%. Let's see. So you guys do give us CDBG funds, but there's some things that we cannot use those for. So for instance, they can no longer be used for the toy project. They cannot be used for our school supplies, and they change the ages that they can be used to 13 to 18 years old. So with that being said, we service a lot of youth under 13. So we can use the CDBG monies for musical instruments, skill building, and camp. And in 2017, 63% of all students receiving skill building funds were younger than 13. So there's that statistic. So basically, we're here to ask that you would consider to give us money. Did you guys get the statistics?
Yes.
Yes,
in
we
your
did.
packet?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you asking for a certain amount?
No. We did put on here that some of the monies that we do receive from the other municipalities, and that averages to $3,100, but it's up to your consideration. Do you have any questions?
Also, in here it says from the 2019-2020 budget, which wouldn't come up until next year. That's not the budget we're currently working
You're
on.
18 to 19, I'm sorry.
Okay, that just want to
Yeah.
make sure that that was just a typo and not,
It was.
hey, we don't need any
Tina
money
wrote
this
up
year.
for me, so. But another thing I didn't add is we do have to provide a staff, which is part of our bylaws. And so we do have a part-time secretary, and her wages, along with our 501c3 filing, is $11,600. So that's a huge part of our budget. Most of our, we do get the allocations, but we also have to do a lot of fundraising. So the need is here. I mean, we need to support our youth, and it's really not going away. So.
Do you not still receive Tim Horton funding for camp?
We do, but the students have to be selected to participate in that, and that's by the caseworker, but we only get a certain amount of bids. So one year we might get 0, the next year we could get 3 or 4. We don't know.
And you get a grant from Holly Township.
Yes. Holly Township, they give us $2,625.
And we're all township residents.
We just specifically, as far as we break this down for, each municipality, so the village is considered separate.
Yeah. Not for everything is it separate.
Yeah. But we do, we do service a considerable amount that, are in the village, so. And we wouldn't turn them away regardless, but we would hope that you would support them.
Thank you.
All right.
Staff have any comments?
I guess the only comment that I would have is during this last round of CDBG applications and public hearing, there were other agencies who came and asked for money from the village in the way of CDBG application. I'm not sure that they knew that it was available to come and ask for additional funding, as well as organizations such as the Holly Community Coalition who did not participate in the CDBG process because they didn't want to interfere with other agencies who were applying for that money. So certainly, I mean, HIA is a great organization. I, in fact, was on the board of HIA previously in another community, and so HIA does great work, and HIA does great work in this community. But I guess council just needs to be cognizant that you will have other organizations, not that there's anything wrong with it, but you have other organizations coming forward.
Yeah.
And it should be a consideration then in future CDBG hearings as far as where money is allocated.
Well, I read the Board of Directors meeting minutes from February 1st, and it says that the Treasurer's report showed a balance of $31,000. Is that correct? Okay.
Is there any action that needs to be taken on this? No? Okay.
I guess my question is, seeing that I am the HIA liaison, do you think I should abstain from this?
There's no action that needs to happen unless somebody makes a motion.
The next order of business would be a motion, but no, I don't think you have to abstain.
Actually, this wouldn't even be effective until, well, take that back. It is going to be part of 18-19 budget. It's probably something that we can discuss at budget.
Right, I was just going to mention that we should, it should be something that we're cognizant of, and we want to, this is something we should be discussing, during our budget.
During the budget
talks,
session.
yeah.
Sounds prudent to me. I don't think we have to take any action, though.
Nope.
So the request will be in consideration to future budget discussion. Speaking of which, budget study session. A wastewater treatment plant, water/sewer.
Yes, thank you. So as you know, the first meetings are every month starting from January have been dedicated to budget study sessions of your budget. So far you've heard from the police and the fire departments. Tonight is wastewater and water, sewer, and then in the future you'll have your general government before your entire budget is presented to you. So Director Stahlkup, Director of the wastewater treatment plant.
Look at that.
Here.
We say wastewater and people walk out. It's going to be very emotional since my last budget presentation.
Aww.
I know.
Didn't you say that last year?
Yeah.
And the year before?
And the year before.
And that's your fault.
And the year before.
You took pen to paper.
I think this has been your last budget presentation since I've been on council.
Yeah. This time it is.
Is that your final answer?
It's my final answer. Now, you all been provided packets, I'm sure.
Yes.
on some of the highlights. So basically, I'm just going to highlight some of the challenges that are coming up for, I won't even be here, I mean, as far as on staff, but, and some are the digester cleaning. I know these are thrilling, aren't they? Digester cleaning, replacement of the aerated grid chamber, which is a big deal because it's probably a significant amount of money. Significant, I mean, probably $80,000. It's over 35 years old. It was going to be put in to the last project, although we got nickel and dime, or the contractor tried to nickel and dime us, and we couldn't put it in. I mean, it was just getting to a point it was crazy, and we weren't going to pay that type of money. And then cleaning of the effluent well, improvements of the headworks area that really needs, I mean, quite a bit of work. And then, of course, replacement of a part-time, or whatever I am, spiritual leader of the wastewater treatment plant. And, you know, we've been, Brian, Jerry, and myself have been, you know, coming up with what we think is a pretty good plan on how the village moves forward and gets a licensed operator to oversee the operation. So with that, if anyone has questions, I know you didn't come down here to talk about wastewater, but I'm sorry. I get this, I've had this all my life. You know, you're on your first date, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm in wastewater. End of date. Anyway, seriously, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer the best I can.
Is there any other purchases you're kind of looking down the road in like a 5-year plan, or that we need to
I'm sorry,
keep
David.
aware of?
Are there any what now?
Long-term, you know,
Yeah,
replacements, you know, in a 5-year plan or something.
Yeah, good question. I did put, there's a 5-year capital outlay plan in here somewhere.
Yeah.
It is
It's on
in
the
your
back
packet.
on the back of the third page. There's some year expected to replace or rebuild, and there's some
Oddly
future
enough,
2020, 2021 things going on.
Oddly enough, that's going to be implemented in our asset management plan. That is now a requirement from MDEQ that each municipality has to submit. Basically, what they're going to do with water sewer funds every year, you'll be required to report that, and if those funds are being used as intended for capital improvement replacements. So it's not something that, you know, we've been doing it all along, but now it's a requirement. It's a state requirement, and you can look at any major NPDES permit, and they have the language is right in there. So that's a good question, though. It's something that needs to be looked at every year.
I have a question. How's Al Kaline?
She's sick. You know, I have to get her a gift certificate to Day Element Spa or something. As a plug for you, by the way. Anyway, she's sick, so I have to be nice. She's doing good, Tom.
That's
I'm
a
gonna
good
say
idea.
You said hi.
Yeah,
That'll
tell Al
make
Kaline I said
that'll make her
hello.
well.
What percentage capacity
Are we at right now? Probably, gosh, what do you want me to say? You know, honestly, it varies from season to season. You know, in the summer, cripe, we're doing good. We're at 50-40%. In the springtime, we can be right at 90, 95, and a lot of times past 100%. So, you know, but the level of treatment is still real good. We've shown that we can go over design flow and still meet all of our
effluent criteria. So it's good. Yeah, there's, like in every community, there's inflow, infiltration problems, you know, that you see all over the place. But, you know, we haven't put, like other communities, not like other communities, we haven't put overflow to the river and things like that. And you can look up, you know, up in Saginaw Bay where 1 billion gallons goes out every spring. And I'm not exaggerating, that's real stuff. So remember that when you're walleye fishing again. I know. Nice. Hey, you got to have some humor in wastewater. You can't be in this business for.
Have you seen any impact with the building going on up in the the old Pulte property or Riverside properties?
Not really.
No.
No, not really. It's really not that significant. We should. That is, the village should be able to handle other development down the road, residential development.
Good to know.
Your biggest exposure is to combined sewers in terms of capacity?
Yeah. Yep.
Any further questions for Mr. Stallcup?
Nothing here.
I think historically that department has been run pretty efficiently, and I expect it will continue to do so. Looking at the numbers, they look very similar to last year.
Yeah, I mean the tour was probably the coolest thing we've done there, just to see the mass of all that. It's
speaking of tours, I know that we do occasionally do tours. Is that something that's scheduled, or is that just something where we get enough interest and we say, hey, we're going to do it on this date?
Usually it's request driven, or
okay.
When there's enough interest. But you're absolutely right. I mean, not enough people take advantage of going through there because really very few people understand the complexity of what happens.
Not even aware, yeah. I mean,
and really, if the water and sewer plant, wastewater treatment plant, for some reason were to shut down, in essence, the village shuts down.
No, your basement becomes a mess.
So, yeah.
Well, we will definitely miss you, Tim.
I will miss you all.
I'll say, yeah, he's going to be here next year.
So he has turned his letter, and he referenced, but just so that you know, he has turned his letter in effect of June 30th of this year. So he has, in fact, submitted official retirement.
Plenty of time to pull it back.
I bet he's going to retire.
He's going to recant his retirement.
If there's nothing further on the...
No action required.
Okay.
We can just transition on to the water treatment or water delivery, and Director Clausen will cover that.
Oh, you can do it. I'm gonna leave and pursue my singing career, which never got off the ground, by the way.
I thought it got off the ground, Tim.
It's only because I made songs with you, Tom. We won't go into that.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
There is one more part of the wastewater, and that's the collection system that gets everything to Tim or the wastewater plant. You can see a lot of numbers haven't changed. I did highlight in the packet some different equipment needs, project costs. I've been working with one of our vendors on a pump replacement program for our lift stations. We currently operate 14 lift stations, 13 of them in the wastewater collection system, and one of them at our water treatment plant that takes our backwash discharge down to the plant. So we're looking at where we would get on this program, pay an annual fee, and every 5 years they would replace these pumps with new ones. I believe in the 7.5 years that I've been here, we've replaced about 3 pumps out of 26. The lifespan, once you get to 8 or 10-year-old pumps, they start to have issues. Knock on wood, we've been very fortunate that we haven't had a lot of issues. We do monthly checks on the lift stations, make sure they're operating properly. This way it would eliminate those costs in the long run, and we would just pay almost like leasing a vehicle. We would always have newer pumps. They would be responsible for maintenance, and if we had issues, they would come out and take care of it. It would be covered under that cost. And you can see that is under project cost. and 590548 line. I did budget for a couple years. I did a 2-year budget, so we looked at, we have another small dump and a large dump that is used when we do maintenance on the system. And those, so part of those costs were budgeted in the equipment lines. Other than that, there's no major differences. There is some discussion for a clerical person to share between wastewater and water because of the asset management that Tim talked about. And kudos to Tim, he's created a very well in-depth SCADA system down there that requires a lot of data input and maintenance on there, garbage in, garbage out in the computer world. So that needs to be maintained on a regular basis, and he spends quite a lot of time on that, which could be better spent by probably a clerical person than a department head. That's pretty much on the collection end of it, so if anybody has any questions about the collection system.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. We go from the collection system to the freshwater side.
So just as for clarification, Tim's plant does not produce drinking water.
No. You may think it's clean at the end, but I would not recommend drinking it. Once again, we look at the water side of it. It's been pretty basic until you get under professional services. As Tim talked about in the wastewater side, for asset management, the DEQ is also required water side. We've already turned in a preliminary asset management plan to the state. We use a contractor to create a online system that can be accessed and discusses different things. We still have, it's a work in progress. We still have to rate some of our assets, which are our water mains, those kind of stuff, those kind of things. And its possibility of failure, those kind of things, how they would affect the system. And then at the end is we'll probably talk about rates as we go through the budget process also, because the DEQ wants to make sure that the rates that the village is charging will be able to sustain current operations and long-term operations in terms for maintenance, repair, and replacement. When you can see in one of these, in the line item for under repairs and maintenance, I have the water tower at the DPW and the water tower at Quick Road to be painted. I do get complaints it's not affecting the water, but we do have black streaks on the one at the DPW. It is a couple years past due for maintenance. Instead of having it power washed and by a company to do that, it's due for painting. So we would look at having that done, and that would be every 10-year process. And the same with Quick Road. One will be done this year and one will be done next year. We also had one of the council members mentioning transitioning to a flex system for a water read system. We've worked with our vendor. There's a price included in that to start that process going with a new handheld unit and being able to do some stuff with that unit, and then eventually getting to what they call the FlexNet system. And that would be over time also. And then once again, there is partial and equipment for a small dump, a large dump.
So that FlexNet system is something we've talked about previously in council and perhaps during last budget session, in which the each water account would be able to be radio read right from the office and not require personnel to drive around the village to collect those reads.
Yeah. That one's after a couple of years of paying, it'll return back to us because we're not paying the guy. A DPW guy 3 days to drive around the village and then get rereads and then
right. That's
so it's
3 days
it's really
every
a
month.
no-brainer. I mean, it's just a cost efficiency gain.
It also will cut down on work orders because the staff in the office will be able to do final reads, set up new accounts without anything like that. So it'll also reduce the amount of hours spent on work orders out in the field.
Is there an ongoing cost for that? Is that like a cellular phone service kind of thing?
No,
or?
not through this system. It's actually a fixed tower, so it would go up on Quick Road probably because that tower doesn't have anything on it. And based on the altitude of that, they'd be able to do the whole system, read it all. I know when they first came out with the system, Mundy Township, Grand Blanc Township, and the City of Grand Blanc shared a system. The FCC doesn't allow you to do that anymore. You have to have your own specific license for the Village of Holly, so we'd have to have our own system up on the tower. This is the first step to getting there with a new handheld that will allow us some more capabilities, and they've held the price, which was quoted to us last year. They've held the price for this year to get through the fiscal year. So
it's basically cell signal, but it's our own little cell system.
Yeah, because of the changes in technology, the MXU, or the box on the outside of the house that reads it, there's an M system and an R system. We're currently on the R system. The R system will not read M systems, but the M systems will read R's, so we have to eventually start changing those boxes over. So there's a cost involved there. The quote they gave us, they're giving us free set points, or endpoints they call them, to start with as part of this upgrade. So we're looking to start doing this as we replace these MXUs with the new M's and the new style meter. They went because of the brass rules changes, and or lead in the brass changes. So we no longer have brass meters. We've gone with a plastic meter. So.
Any questions for Brian?
That varies year to year because what we have is unmetered water. So when we fill up the street sweep, when we have a fire, when we flush hydrants, all that is unmetered. So that's taken into our loss rate. So it varies year to year. We know what we pump annually and what we bill annually. So because we have unmetered water, we do have some residents that still borrow water, but we don't. With these new meter changes and stuff like that, and our new billing system, we're able to catch those quicker. So.
What's the rate?
I believe last year it was around 21%. And talking with our engineers, that's not unreasonable in a system our size. So.
Any further comments or questions for Brian? Hearing none, we'll go to reports. Mr. Walker?
I have no report tonight.
Debbie, any report?
No, I guess. Jerry and I are going to attend a spring seminar on Friday that's held by Plant Moran and MGFOA.
What's that? Do we have to cure the attorney's absence with a motion to excuse his absence?
Yes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to excuse the attorney's absence.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor say aye. Oh, no, excuse me, roll call.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kirkshank.
Yes.
Hypo.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
I thought
Thank
we
you.
had already taken care of that issue by only requiring the attorney to be here at one meeting a month. Or is it supposed to be this meeting?
But I usually put it in the consent agenda to excuse him.
Oh, I didn't realize we still needed to even do that.
Yeah.
We've been doing it.
Okay.
Keep your eye on her, will you?
I thought he was only required to be here at one. I don't know why we would excuse him from the other. If he's only required to be here at one.
Any reports of
been
boards or
doing it,
commissions? No boards or commissions reports?
Usually, I was just going to say, usually the individual council members on those boards or commissions give the report.
Any report?
There was no meeting, or there was no planning meeting since the last council meeting. And the next one is canceled. Just got that notification today.
The next community center meeting is scheduled for March 19th at 8 o'clock after the Volunteer Expo.
Finance and personnel have not met.
Same with historic and Haya. Don't really have anything unless young lady here wants to elaborate.
Parks Commission met on Wednesday. We talked about Community Play Day, Holly Day. Put together. We also talked about our Parks Cleanup Day, which is, I think, June 2nd is Cleanup Day this year. We're going to have a parks walkthrough where we'll determine what needs the parks have on the 28th of April. Mr. Cruikshank and I attended a Keepers of the Shiawassee River meeting out in Fenton last week as well, and gave them a bit of a pitch on having them hold Riverfest at Waterworks Park. We're going to put together a little proposal for them sometime this week or next, for them to talk about at their next meeting, and try and figure out a way to have the Shiawassee Riverfest here at Waterworks at the headwaters of the Shiawassee River.
Yeah, it's a huge event down there. I mean, they have businesses doing demos of kayaks and stand-up boards. I think they have 7 or 8 vans now going all day. They have food trucks. They have vendors coming. It's a huge elaborate. I mean, the cool thing that I thought they had was that cardboard regatta, they call it, which is the kids building a cardboard and they're just paddling out in the water as fast as they can until whoever gets out there the fastest, wins, and so super family oriented event. Waterworks Park should be able to accommodate the whole thing, so no street closures. So it just seems very, very cool. I couldn't be more excited to bring that out here.
Zoning board, nothing.
Okay. Council comments. Do we call on the individual council members for those?
Just go right around.
Okay, Ryan, we'll start with you.
Have none.
And I also forgot to mention that the Mark from Chaos Volleyball was at our Parks meeting, and there are preliminary plans to install the sand volleyball courts that we talked about putting in Lakeside last year, but ran into some engineering issues. There's talk about putting those volleyball courts at Cyclone Park in place of where the previous tennis courts were, that is now all overgrown and doing nothing. So there was talk of doing something along those lines.
I thought it was a soccer field.
We talked about the tennis courts at the park at the Parks meeting.
Okay.
So the final location hasn't been determined yet, but the tennis courts would definitely be my preference.
Just one thing, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. McKinney for agreeing to be our newly appointed president.
Thank you for saying that. It's early yet. You have the right to change your mind. You reserve the right to change your mind about that.
Well, I personally do appreciate.
Suzanne?
I'd like to second Debbie's comments. Thank you for sitting in with us.
Thank you for saying that. David?
The only other thing I had is, can we get some clarification on the Waterworks building deadline? I'm pretty sure it was April, but if it is the 6th or June.
We will pull the minutes,
yeah, please,
and supply a copy of those to council as well as to Mr. Cullis and Mr. Hoffman, just so that everybody has the same document.
Yep. Thank you.
Public comments. Mr. Love?
I'd like to review briefly the situation with the Historic Commission and also with Mr. Walker's memo. I went to the Historic Commission when I was appointed, and I said, we need to have a budget. They didn't have one. We need to have some signs and promote the district. We have to, I would like to see some awards created to reward people that fix up their properties. And we had this scheduled tour of the proposed historic district. I worked on those, but there were some problems. I was making problems. So Mr. Cullis and Mr. Petz went and complained to President Perkins and asked that I be removed from the Historic Commission. He did not do that. Then he gets this agenda that says I'm to be replaced because, quote, my term was up. Cullis's term was up too, but we didn't want to do that. So I go to the meeting, and at the meeting, all of his recommendations for appointments that he did not make were removed from the agenda with one exception, me. Then I get this memo from that you read at the meeting saying, oh, I was hysterical and couldn't control myself and it was out of control. Here's what happened. I found out at the DDA meeting that he had resigned. I went over and talked to him. He said, yeah, I'm sick of this stuff. And he wrote out a note. He didn't write a letter saying that he did not authorize that on his agenda item. I went to the meeting, and all of those items were removed except that one. Then I get this letter from a memo from Walker. It's dated the 15th. At 10 o'clock, he got a phone call from Perkins, supposedly. Said that, it was out of control. Well, it was interesting. On that day, I saw him and Mr. Cullis at Miller's going away memorial service at 11 o'clock. At noon, we had the Washington banquet. He was there. Then at 2 o'clock, it says that he went over to get a note from the clerk. She didn't know anything about it. And somehow this was produced. This was on Thursday, the last day of the week, following up with the community meeting. So that's what I saw. And I didn't talk to him any further about this. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to get involved in it any further. But I wanted to present my side of the story. And I at least would expect that kind of respect instead of the way I was treated with that letter, reading it, and not even being willing to give me a copy. I think that was unacceptable. I want to see this Historic Commission stop canceling meetings. That's a problem. I want to move the Historic Commission forward. We're canceling meetings. I had an agenda with these items. Cullis evidently was too busy. And they don't want to be bothered having a meeting. We have a new member on the committee, on the commission. No meeting. This isn't how you move the Historic Commission, how you move the community forward.
Mr. Love?
Time's up. It's your turn to create the new Holly.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Marta?
Marta, 115 South Saginaw. I understand here this evening that you've passed the car cruise, and it's approximately 30 nights that you're going to close the streets. And I don't know if you understand how many times you actually do close the streets in our downtown. If you took all of your applications and you added them together of what you've already approved, you're at approximately 46 days that you were closing our streets. You mentioned that 10 was excessive. So 46, we're close to almost 1 day a week now. So maybe in the future you could take a look at your applications, maybe decide how many times that you will close in a year, and then have to determine from there what's really feasible. Because now we've added on a new venue for Battle Alley, and you've already approved 9 closures for Battle Alley. So I really feel bad for the businesses on that street, because you really do hamper their income. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments? Seeing none, hearing none. Consideration of entering into closed session to consider the purchase or lease of real property. I think that requires a motion and a roll call vote.
It does. So moved.
Support. Motion and support. Roll call, please.
Awesome.
Yes.
Cruikshank.
Yes.
Heupel.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
McKenney.
Yes. And we'll take a break. Comfort break.
8:32.
Back at 5. Oh, sir. Yes.
Yeah, hurry up. You're killing my bedtime by doing that. Did I miss that in the email?
Because the 21st, the room is busy, so that's why we did it.
It's kind of nuisance, but they did move to it.
Okay, I just want to make sure you show up.
Must be.
You can't use the word reschedule. Okay, I gotta do it. cancellation, and then a scheduling. That's why I read that. I was like, oh, it's canceled. Good, closed.
Yes. Is that the email?
Here's my card. You're welcome to come talk to me anytime. I've never met you before, so I sure wish you would come back and talk to us. Never saw you.
Come back into open session.
My card, my phone number.
Yeah, because we're just going to close session, but then we come back out and right, where they're going to watch it on Doom. But then we're going to come back out.
You can, but the damn First Amendment. There was something.
Close it down. Okay.
Oh,
I think Terry's shutting it down without. I think Terry's doing it remotely anyway. Yeah, Jay Watson at HollyVillage.org. All of our emails are first initial last name. Jay Watson at HollyVillage.org. All of the Holly Village ones are first initial last name at HollyVillage.org. So you can get hold of anybody. Okay. You can get hold of anybody. Oh, okay.
Those are supposed to be, they're supposed to be charted, aren't they? I mean, charted.
Are you sure?
Per page cost, clerical cost.
Serious. I'm married to a Okay. Everybody accuses me of that. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thanks.
You did a good job.
That was an interesting statistic about closing the maximum of 10 times. I'm just surprised that, you know, it seems to me that works well for downtown to close the streets for there's the youth party in June, there's the Dickens Festival, there's the car show. It seems to me that, you know, I live downtown too. I'm not.
We live right there in Redwood.
Yeah.
Right there.
Ready to go so we can get done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell them we're starting without them.
We gave them 5 minutes.
My friend.
I will see everyone later. You guys will take care of you at home.
Yeah, it was. It was.
No more snow.
I'm home. I'm ready for the summer.
What did she say yesterday to you? What did she say yesterday to you?
Today was insane. Today was insane.
And she gave the message.
Huh?
guys, man.
I know. It's
Linda. Winter sucks.
we're around.
Everybody goes in their cave.
Oh yeah. Good to see you. Good.
We'll catch up soon, bud. Also,
I'm coming, boss senior or junior. I'm gonna say I don't know if I'll probably come